for all variety of reasons. People have unhappy relationships. People have unhappy financial situations. People have health problems. People have problems related to their career and their work, or they may not even have a job. And Lingo was looking for the lowest common denominator. He wanted to know what was the one thing that was in common with people who are struggling with issues. And it all came down to this little button inside the brain, the amygdala. And what the amygdala does, as we said earlier, it's a junction box, it's a switch. Now, your brain is compartmentalized, as it were. It's in 3 layers, okay? You have a very primitive part of the brain called the reptile brain, and it's kind of like the seeds of an apple. And the reptile brain allows you to survive. It allows you basic functioning, keeps your heart going,
Sure.
It regulates your temperature, basic survival. Now around that is a newer evolved part of the brain called the mammal brain, and that adds on basic social behaviors, it adds on emotions, okay? Now, that's like the core of an apple around the seeds. Now, all the juicy part of the apple, the part that tastes good and that you like to eat, okay, that makes up most of the apple, really, okay? That's 5/6 of an apple is the juicy meat of the apple. Well, your brain is like that too, because 5/6 of a human brain is what is known as the primate brain. And the primate brain is what adds on all the fine motor skills. It allows us all the refinements of this lower mammal brain type of thinking. The most advanced part of the brain, the frontal lobes, the part that's from your ears forward, as it were, in your brain, that adds on those Cecil types of processes we were talking about. Creativity, imagination, cooperation, intuition, which is nonverbal, and logic, which is, 1 + 1 and ABC, okay? Most of the brain volume is this primate brain, which is the higher function.
And when you say most, what percent?
5/6. So 1/6 of the volume of the brain is the reptile brain and the mammal brain. But it's not the most powerful part of the brain. It's not the thing that allows you to fly a plane. It's not the thing that allows you to compose symphonies. It's not the thing that allows you to turn on your radio and make sense of the noise that's coming out of the radio. This is the primate brain and the frontal lobes, okay? So back to your original question, which I didn't forget, was, what was he looking for? He was looking for a way that people could switch on that other 5/6 of the brain, which for most of us is not being used. That's where the term dormant brain comes from.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we're only using 10% of our potential is intuitively correct. We are just using a teeny tiny slice of what is infinite potential. And so what Lingo discovered was methods by which people could turn on more and more and more of this infinite potential in the brain. And by doing so, you solve the problems that you have in life. You solve the emotional problems. You solve the pragmatic problems of finances and day-to-day problems that you come up with. All these issues that people face are solved as you turn on the best parts of your brain.
That is something else. And if you know how to do it on a regular basis, it can enhance your life, can it?
Absolutely. I mean, the idea is this. You don't want to be controlled by cultural conditioning that keeps you clicked backwards into the stupid part of the brain. You want to consciously be able to turn on the most advanced part of your brain. And that was the focus of his life's work, and that's what I learned from him, and that's what I've been helping to teach people learn for themselves for 30 years.
Why are some people smarter than others?
That's an interesting question. Tell me what you think smart is. What is intelligence?
Well, I was gonna give you a sub with that.
Okay.
Somebody in school can't get through math, but another person aces it. Why?
Well, there's different kinds of intelligence, and we're not all built the same. One family is good at music. Another family is good at construction. Another family would be good at throwing parties.
Right.
Right?
Well, like the kid who's good at math might not even know how to fix a car, where somebody who might be a disaster in mathematics might be a genius tuning up a car.
Absolutely. This is one thing that kind of makes me laugh when I go on. People often say, hey, there's this new machine that's supposed to make you more intelligent. You put on these goggles and the flashing lights flash, and it's supposed to make you more intelligent. And so I
Bingo.
always say, well, what is intelligence? Is a person who is happy but can't add 2 plus 2 stupider than an unhappy person who is a math genius? Who's the smarter of those two people? See, definitions it's all in the definition there. There are people called savants that I know you know about.
Yeah.
These are people. Rain Man. You know the movie Rain Man?
That's right, with Dustin Hoffman.
That's
Sure.
right. He was a savant. He could memorize a telephone book. He could say, who's on page, you could ask this fellow. I mean, literally, this was true. Who's on page 1001, right?
And
he could tell you the name of the guy and what his address was.
And he was so regimented in his life.
But
he had to do things.
Shoes,
yeah.
Right? So the question of intelligence, that's a slippery kind of slope there. So you've got to really define, what intelligence is. And Lingo said there were many different kinds of intelligences. And I have a friend who teaches at the Waldorf School, and we were talking about this the other day. And Lingo would say there's genetic intelligence, there's social intelligence, there's spiritual intelligence, there's physical intelligence. There's all kinds of, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. He would say there was 4 different kinds of intelligences, but there's really probably many, many more than that. And but again, the one thing in common, no matter what you're trying to achieve, is if you can keep this amygdala tickled, if you can tickle your amygdala out of this reptile competitive consciousness and into the frontal lobe's cooperative consciousness, no matter what you're trying to do, you'll be better at that.
Is it easier to go into the reptilian mode or the other mode?
That's an interesting question. What I immediately thought of when you said that was, what's a baby do? Now, babies are born sometimes smiling and giggling. My mother tells me I was a very happy baby.
Well, and also helpless.
Right.
We're one of the few creatures, Neil, that at birth can't take care of themselves.
That's right.
Most other animals, they're off and away.
That's true. That's true.
So, yeah.
But the question being, which way is it easier to click backwards or to tickle forwards, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, babies cry a lot, right? So it's very easy for a baby who's hungry to click backwards into his,
little reptilian brain.
Well, yeah, I'm hungry, right? So that's effortless for a baby. But as a baby myself, and I'm sure everybody knows kids like this, kids can be spontaneously and effortlessly happy for no reason at all. Let a kid out in the backyard and they're running around in circles and rolling down hills and playing. It's effortless for them. So I don't know. I don't think it's, for little children, I don't think it's easier or harder to be clicked one way or the other.
What about adults, though?
But adults,
we must roadblock our brain.
Once you've spent a couple years in school, or depending upon who your parents were, or what the neighbors' kids were like next door that you had to play with, then some things definitely are trickier. I think, it's sort of I'm trying to think of there's an old saying, the Zen saying. They were talking about transcendence, achieving enlightenment, and the Zen saying is you must pass through the gate where there is no gate. Now that's interesting because that should be effortless, correct?
Absolutely.
To go through a gate where there's no gate, that's effortless. But people who study Zen meditation, that's a pretty rigorous type of practice. So it's sort of it's a paradox. I think learning how to consciously tickle your amygdala and stay in your frontal lobes. It's a paradox because ultimately you discover that it's the simplest thing in the world. But yet, until you understand what it's about, it seems like an impossible task.
Neil,
but it's really not. It's really simple. It's like passing through the gate where there is no gate. You finally go, oh, duh, that's, for my own personal experience, and we're talking again about how easy or difficult it is to control this amygdala switch. It took me 6 years of attending the brain lab before I finally understood what this popping of the frontal lobes was all about. And when I discovered it, I just went, duh, it's been in front of my nose the whole time.
Let's check in on the ESP and paranormal aspect about this when we come right back, Neil, on Coast to Coast AM.